Right, so I think this video may lose me some subscribers and be heavily disliked, but I'd rather give my honest opinion and actually tell United fans the truth, rather than living in an echo chamber where everyone is just completely deluded, because after all, we don't want to turn into prime Arsenal fan TV, do we? But before I go any further, remember to subscribe to the channel and check out my Patreon podcast, which will be linked below. But also, if you want cheap, good quality football jerseys for the new season, or retro jerseys from the past 40 years, then check out jerseyfifa.com. A link will be in my Instagram bio, and if you use coupon code Atlantis, you should get a discount as well. I'll leave my Instagram at the top of the description and comment section, and a link will be in my Instagram bio. So before I get into it, obviously I would have preferred the Qataris to take over rather than Jim Ratcliffe. Obviously I'm Glazer out, obviously in the macro they are the biggest problem. But stop commenting Glazer out on every piece of social media, it's becoming cringe right now. And stop blaming the Glazers after every single defeat. Are the Glazers the reason why United can't compete with the likes of City and Arsenal? Probably. I'll admit that. They certainly are. The club is basically run like how a kid would run a Football Manager save. But commenting Glazer out over social media every single time United lose, regardless of how we lose, and keep going on about how Ten Hag can't be blamed because it's the Glazers, blah blah blah, how we don't spend any money, it's becoming cringe, it's turning the club into a laughing stock. Opposition fans are just laughing at us because they know that every time we lose, people just go straight on social media going on about the Glazers, ignoring the glaringly obvious tactical errors that are coming game after game. Honestly, it's like United are turning into Arsenal fan TV from the mid-2010s. It's becoming that level of cringe at the moment. We've just been pumped 3-0 by Newcastle and Manchester City in back-to-back games, where tactically we're absolutely terrible. The midfield was wide open, we're getting completely ran through like a Vindaloo. That's absolutely nothing to do with the Glazers. I mean, the Glazers, as far as I'm aware, correct me if I'm wrong, the Glazers aren't the ones setting up the pressing system. The Glazers aren't the ones setting up the defensive unit in United's own half. They're not the one in charge of the possession system. Yes, they have restricted United heavily. United should have gone out and got Kim Min-jae in the summer alongside Harry Kane and even Frankie de Jong the summer before, and that probably would have allowed Ten Hag, or should have allowed Ten Hag, to make United title challengers. But pretending that United don't spend any money at all, and Ten Hag's in the same sort of situation that Pochettino was in during the end of his Tottenham tenure, is becoming so cringe right now. And also stop this weird narrative that United are somehow in financial trouble, we can't spend any money, blah blah blah. This summer we just spent 70 million on Højlund, 60 million on Mason Mount, 50 million on Andre Onana. The season before, Casemiro came in for 60 million, Antony for 80 million, Lisandro Martinez for 50 million. Yes, obviously there's been times where United should have spent money and they haven't, such as in January last season when they brought in Weghorst, when really they should have gone out and got a proper striker to replace Anthony Martial. But pretending that Ten Hag somehow massively financially restricted, and that's why United are basically playing like a mid-table side, is so cringe. And it's easily disproved because you look up the table and you've got Postecoglou at Tottenham, who's got them playing like a title challenging side, and it's his first season. You've got Unai Emery at Aston Villa, De Zerbi at Brighton, and even Eddie Howe at Newcastle, who haven't spent anywhere near the money that United have. They definitely haven't got as good squads, and they've been in charge of their respective clubs for a similar amount, if not less time, than Ten Hag has at United. So this weird narrative of blaming the Glazers for literally every single loss and pretending like Ten Hag hasn't been given the funds to bring in top quality players, it's just embarrassing at this point. The majority of sane United fans admit that the Glazers are a massive problem. They are holding the club back, and the Qataris of course would have been a much better option than Sir Jim taking over. But the whole criticism of Manchester City over the past decade and a half has been that they just bought the league, they spent the money, they haven't got any culture to their club. But now in 2023, you've got fans on social media basically saying the club's over because the Qataris didn't buy the club. I mean, get a grip. Is Sir Jim the ideal owner? Probably not. But I don't think he will be a terrible owner. I mean, at least he'll have an actual recruitment plan, unlike the Glazers. At least he's taken over the football side of things. And so people in my comments who are saying that United are finished, we're basically like Everton, just get off social media. You're being brainwashed. United finished third last season and won a trophy. They're still without doubt, United are still the biggest club in England. Probably the second biggest club in world football, can still attract big names. Just stop with this cringe. It's just accept the truth. that Ten Hag is making tactical mistakes. That doesn't mean you want Ten Hag out. But trying to avoid all criticism, basically making up excuses for him, when tactically over the last few games we've been absolutely terrible. I mean, look at this from an opposition fan's point of view. United fans are basically saying that the reason we struggled to beat Burnley, Sheffield United, Brentford, Wolves is because we didn't spend enough money and because of the Glazers. We spent £180 million. We brought in Rasmus Højlund, Andre Onana, Amrabat, Mason Mount. These are top quality players that Ten Hag wanted himself. Casemiro came in last season alongside Antony. Casemiro, when I look at this midfield, I just don't see a role for him. Antony is complete dog shit. I know he was overpriced at £80 million, but even at £40 million, I wouldn't even take him on a free. He's basically a championship level winger. So pretending that Ten Hag hasn't been backed and that, oh, if he'd only had enough money, I mean, if he'd been given another 200 million, who's to say that he wouldn't have made the same mistakes? He brought in Casemiro, who, I mean, I still think he's a very good player, but he just doesn't fit the system at the moment. He's not really what United need, especially with Amrabat in there. It's really hard to see why United spent £60 million on Casemiro when he doesn't even fit the style. Antony, £80 million, I mean, just... who's to say that if the Qataris did take over and Ten Hag was given, I don't know, £300 million, that he doesn't make the same mistakes? I mean, just stop with the cringe. It's making the whole situation into a meme and making a mockery of the whole Glazer situation. I think opposition fans, or rival fans should I say, would have a lot more sympathy for the whole situation if United fans didn't just pin every single problem on the club at the Glazers. I mean, the Glazers are the macro problem, they're the biggest problem, and they are going to leave. The Qataris aren't taking over, it doesn't look like, so stop banging on about it. Stop after every single loss saying Glazer out, Glazer out. You're turning it into a meme, and rival fans are just laughing at us. Just accept that Ten Hag, when it comes to the transfer market, needs a director of football. His player selection seems to be absolutely abysmal. He's signing players that even he admits don't even suit the way he wants to play. Like, what is that all about? And tactically, which is the area where you'd think Ten Hag there would be no issues, we've looked absolutely terrible. The reason we struggled to beat Brentford, struggled to beat Sheffield United, struggled to beat Wolves, lost to Crystal Palace, it's not because of the Glazers. It's because in possession, we just don't have the ability to break down sides who are deep and compact and compress the centre of the park and force us out wide. And out of possession, our midfield is so open. The press is completely disjointed. I mean, we have to move to a back five, but Ten Hag seems to refuse to do it. Ten Hag doesn't have an excuse to be playing this bad. Now, he does have an excuse to not be winning the title and competing with Manchester City, but this season we have to be getting top four. If you're a United fan and you're going to say that it's okay for Ten Hag not to get top four this season and not to progress to, say, the quarterfinals of the Champions League, I'm sorry, you're completely deluded and you're turning it into what people call a banter club. It's becoming a meme at this point. Obviously, we all want the Glazers out, but you commenting Glazer out after every single loss on social media is just turning the whole situation and the club as a whole into a laughing stock.